Well, here we are. Bit of a technical problem there, but I think we're back. A massive welcome to all of our subscribers, first-time viewers, and of course LinkedIn members to a one-off special where I'm joined by the three founders of the CyberShow for a deep dive into the lives of ransomware gangs and how good old-fashioned legwork is often their downfall. As you may have seen, LockBit, the cybercrime gang that was knocked offline by a comprehensive international police operation earlier this month, says it's restored its servers and is back in business. But are they though? So are we doing enough? Are they back in business? What's going on? Stay tuned to find out more. Secrets are being given away today. My auto cue has just failed. So we've had a video feed fail and we've now got an auto feed fail. So you'll have to excuse me while I just bring up my screen. Hold on 1 second. All the magic's going now, isn't it? It's just going to be ruined for everyone. Hold on. Here we go. So got it back. Thank goodness. Bit about our guests. So the CyberShow are three real hackers, diverse in their worldviews and politics, who unite in a passionate, deeply critical quest to understand technological society. And the trio is made up of Dr. Andy Farnell, who's a British computer scientist and electronics engineer, who established the field of procedural audio. More about that later. Ed Nevard, who holds a Master's of Science in Cybersecurity Engineering and a bachelor's in computer systems and networking. Should mention you got an honours in that as well, Ed. And lastly, but definitely by no means least, Helen Plews, whose name I can't say, was destroying her dad's tech from the age of 9 with video games, which expanded into a deep understanding of computer science and cybersecurity. We're going to be finding more about them shortly, but before we bring them on, and for those new to the channel, I'm your host Simon Linstead, and by sharing stories and best practices over the last few months, it's led to over 177,000 views here on YouTube by you, our amazing 8,997, I believe, subscribers. And got a quick QR code for you here to bring up, because all of this started with the community. The community, it says 5,000 there. It's actually 6,000 global members collaborating with study groups, mentor sessions, and regular networking events to help you raise your game in cyber, no matter what stage you are in your career. So make sure you check out the community if you haven't already. And if you'd like to support the wider InfoSec Live community, or indeed just buy me a cheeky decaf coffee, we do have a way you can show your appreciation right here on our channel with 3 tiers of membership, allowing you to show your support in any way that you can. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe, and make sure you ring that bell to be notified of future content. And remember, each and every one of our live shows gives you, our audience, the chance to engage with our guests. So make sure, I've seen some of you have done it already, make sure you drop any questions that you've got in the chat. Okay, time for us to see if the technology continues to work or not today, and me to stop rambling on. Let's bring on the CyberShow team. Well, everyone knows I've got an audio now, right? Welcome. Great to see you. I'm going to flip it round and have myself small in the corner today, because there's 3 of you, and I think this will make it much more interesting for our viewers. So look, firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We had a chat a couple of months back now, I think it was. Yeah. Really excited to hear about what you were doing. Really passionate about the angle that you're kind of talking about security on, which we're going to cover off later in the show today. But before we do that, can I just get to go around the table and do a bit of an intro and a bit more background on each of our guests, because I only gave a little snapshot, and I'm going to pick on ladies first. Helen in the middle, please.
Hello. So, I grew up in a household with a father who went into tech. So he taught me quite a lot, mostly how to install using MS-DOS, too much to his failure, which involved me filling up his hard drive at the age of 9 and hiding installs so we couldn't find them, which cost him hours of work. But then progressed into building that hardware with him and making my own computers, at which point I was just left to fix it all yourself. And that was a time before we have the technology we have now. So the internet was a much scarier place, I guess it could be said, and a much more exciting place, right? Yeah, more than now, maybe. It was more free and more accessible. So I picked up quite a lot of cybersecurity, mostly from the gaming community, which if you were a part of in the 1990s, you understand why that might have been necessary. And then I went into IT. I started with an ISP, did a bit of that, realized that, hang on, this girl knows her tech. Maybe we should give her positions in IT. Then thought I should go and get myself qualified. And I did that during lockdown. And I went and got a cybersecurity degree and got a distinction and got my work published, which was cool. I found malware in USBs.
Amazing. That's amazing. But yeah, I think you've missed out one crucial part there, Debbie.
Oh God!
Oh, you did, yeah.
Come on.
Okay, I left IT to go and be a star for a while, and I went and I was 4 years. I spent being Debbie Harry all around the UK, playing to large audiences. So lots and lots of fun. But I missed my slippers and my video games, so that was the end of that.
Yeah, I'm with you on the slippers, and I've actually even got a spare dressing gown on the floor next to me here. Should I get cold during the stream? So don't be shocked if you see me pulling it on. Yeah. So Helen, before I move on to Ed, what are you doing with yourself now?
So we run Boudica Cybersecurity and do the CyberShow, as you can see up here. So we do training and teaching, education, and we do lots of conferences where we share our research and our ideas, and we stay at the cutting edge. And we are building a technical-based, really pen testing focused cybersecurity training course and centre. Very exciting.
That sounds exciting. And when can we find out more about that?
You can go to boudicasecurity.com right now and you can book your space and come in and join us in our lovely classroom, which you can see right in front of you.
I am going to just get the link for that.
Thank you.
Ed, there we go. This is me multitasking. It's not something we see often on this show. Here we go. Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much. Ed, tell me a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you for the little short intro. So a little bit more background. I run a large online IT community called This Is an IT Support Group. Run that with my colleague Stetson, and that grew massively during lockdown. I think we had like 15,000 Facebook group members, and now it's like over 100,000. Wow. So we're doing really well on that front, and we've got an amazing community there, some great sponsors with us, and that's been my main focus, mostly educational background. So I'm the youngest here, I'm 23, and yeah.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I remember your freak out when we... Sorry, your birth year begins at 2.
Yeah. You're actually a year younger than my oldest son, so you're not making me feel too old there.
I finished my master's with Helen in 2022, and we started Boudica together, and that's pretty much me.
I think you've missed a bit as well that I missed out at the intro at the start because it was quite long. That I think is really really relevant. You did some research. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so my master's project was focused on kind of our dependence on big tech products, and actually, the more I delved into it, the more and more freaked out I got, and it shows that about 90%, over 90% of searches are all done through Google. The amount of reliance we have on 5 companies as an entire global economic scale is just mind-blowing, and
terrifying.
It is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And the more I found out about it, the more I regretted starting the project.
And you just wanted to live in a cave and not talk to anyone.
Pretty much, live in a cave, move to an island in a cave and just hide there.
I mean, I think social media has got a lot to answer for a lot of society's problems at the moment. As a father of 6 children, various ages, it's been interesting to watch it evolve as a parent as well, because when Alfie, who's now a year older than you, it was all fairly new at that point and very different. But then I look at our youngest of 5-year-old twins, and obviously they haven't got a smartphone and they're not on computers. But my 7-year-old daughter, the influence she gets is from kids' YouTube. I know it's not full-blown YouTube because it's meant to be friendly, but it's still social media, right? And you look at the elections, the influence that social media companies have. They're the ones really with the true power now. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we were actually starting a sort of under the CyberShow for the upcoming election in the UK. We were looking at starting a kind of how to spot misinformation online guide, and we're going to do a couple of series of those as we get closer towards the summer in the UK.
I don't think we're going to be able to spot deep fake AIs for much.
It's going to be
though,
much more difficult.
Horrendous. I'm just looking in the chat. There's Paul. Great to see you, Mr. Rogers. Paul's part of the group that you moderate.
Oh, amazing!
So is Itza, by the look of it. Some people are. Do you have another link that I could share for that group as well?
Let me just get it.
And while my glamorous assistant Ed is looking for the link, Andy, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey,
with your sore throat.
I must apologise. My voice is very weak at the moment because I've been a bit poorly since Christmas. The same COVID that you've had, Simon. What do I do? I do.
I know the. Do you know what? I know the feeling, Andy. That's the problem. I know where you are with that. Yeah.
So sciencey stuff, maths, numbers, code, crypto.
Yeah.
And I've been teaching as a visiting professor of computer science and digital signal processing for about 30 years, which is kind of bloody long time now. So
he's an author.
I write books.
He's got books.
I make tea.
How's his tea?
Fantastic, but not as good as his lecturing.
Is it not? Is this so? Let's talk about that first before we start, because we're talking about ransomware today. But I want to focus on how you two got together. Ed, you mentioned that you and Helen were studying together.
Yes.
Andy, where did Andy come in?
This was our lecturer.
No way.
I was at the front. We were doing algorithms and data structure. No, we weren't. We were doing
Red Team.
We were doing the adversarial side. Cybercraft, weren't we? Yeah. Yeah. So
we went to the pub.
And
spent a lot of time in the pub.
At the Black Phoenix, which was kind of where the real learning.
For those watching outside of the UK, all the best ideas form in pubs.
Definitely.
Bars, as you call them. Yeah.
They're just social gathering spaces. You can just walk in and get a Coke if you want.
Yeah.
Right? They're great. Yeah. So we did a lot of that, and then we realized that there were some problems in education, mostly with how to do that technical side. So we ended up co-teaching with you, and assisting lecturing while we're doing our studies and looking after all 38 students who would all show up to all of Andy's classes, but none of the others. So you knew that he was the most popular lecturer there. And it
sounds to me like Andy was just palming his work off on YouTube.
Pretty much, yeah.
Sorry, that was mean, wasn't it?
Nip out and have a chat. Oh, that was long.
I've caught the cough back from doing that as well. And Jonathan, Dr. Van Houten in the audience, currently resides in the very sunny, very much warmer and nicer Tampa, Florida, that he's desperate to come over here and move to the UK. And when you do come over, Jonathan, I know I have said this to him, but when he comes over, I will take you to the pub, and maybe we'll even find the Black Phoenix where all these ideas were formed.
We will.
Originally. So, okay, I'm rambling again. We said this before the show that we're all really good at this, so we've got to get back on track. Let's talk about ransomware. Helen, I think it's over to you first, isn't it?
Yeah, so I wanted to start looking at the technical side, and I know that our InfoSec community are well into that and they know it, but our community not so much, and a few of them are chilling in today. So let's tune in. So let's just have a little breakdown and look at that technical side of ransomware. So ransomware is pretty much like many other malwares, with the definition being it's a single financial goal that they write into it to encrypt all your data and send you a lovely little ransom note. Because if you want your stuff back, we would like millions of pounds of your money, please. Not so great, but it is still a malware. You still get it in the same way that you would any other malware. It comes to you through social engineering, sometimes through phishing attacks, sometimes they may be human error. Sometimes though, just like when we look at WannaCry from 2017, they are actually 0 days that we don't know about and we don't have a defense for. So we're all impervious on all our systems to a ransomware attack of that kind, no matter what we do. But what does it do exactly? What happens? Well, it's a malware. It will enter your first device and straight away it is looking for credentials that it can find on your network. And it is looking to build a map of your system. Once it's found a few credentials by throwing a few exploits in its algorithm, it will use those unbelievably quickly most of the time to spread to all of those devices it can reach, particularly paying attention to any backups that you have, and it will try to do so without alerting that security team that they're there, because it wouldn't be much of a ransomware if you could shut it down halfway through and prevent it. Right? After you've noticed that some of your computers are encrypted, it's pretty much too late. You can guarantee they've got to most of your online facing drives, and in which case you're then presented with this fantastic little note on the screen, which essentially says you need to give us a call because we need your money. You might get your data back. At that point, you are dealing with either a criminal, because a lot of these are very nasty organized crime gangs, or you're dealing with an actual customer service agent that works for a country that in the US and UK we trade with, we are allied with, who are operating legally in their country and are paying some sort of VAT and just think they're doing their job for you, which is kind of funny. So they get a little bit confused when you're angry on the phone with them, which is quite constrained. And you've got a countdown timer and all your files being encrypted around you, and everyone in the office flipping, throwing papers, getting pens and paper. I've done it. You know, it's mad. Everything. What's happening? Oh, the ship's on fire. You're trying to negotiate down from 10 million to 5.
And they're very professional.
They are very.
They are very
extremely
professional,
better customer service than most companies.
They're very good at calming you down.
Can we just, if we're talking customer service, I'd just like to shame a company online quickly.
Go for it.
So I'm shaming myself by admitting that I use them by saying this. However, I may have built one of my old websites on GoDaddy. Don't hate me. And they're very good at automatically renewing products, whether you want them or not.
Of course.
They are,
So I haven't used this function for about 9 months, 3 months after I took it out in the first place. And I looked at my bank statement today, and guess what? They've renewed it for 3 years, haven't they? So,
3 years. That's very nice.
Oh, of course they have, not a year. So I went onto their chat at 1:15 this afternoon, and I got it resolved at 4:10 this afternoon. So if anyone out there is thinking about using GoDaddy, don't. There we go. I'll get sued by them tomorrow. Please carry on.
Cease and desist comes straight through the post.
Yeah,
it's an opinion. You're a broadcaster. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Education.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess one of the most important and interesting things about ransomware is the type of encryption and how that's evolved since ransomware came about and became a big thing. They used to often use, symmetric encryption, which eventually we were able to defeat. But now they're using mostly hybrid encryption and really nasty methods that can sometimes absolutely destroy the data, such as Petra. It's just going to delete it. The encryption they're using is really clever with the hybrid, because they use a master key, which is their private key, to lock the algorithm down, so that when they get to the system and they find the data, they actually generate a brand new symmetric key to lock that data down. And so you're not just dealing with
it is personalized,
exactly. And you're suddenly dealing with more than one key. It's not one key to unlock your file. It is if you can get into their server, but from your end dealing with it, you've got all of your files encrypted under multiple keys. You don't have the computer power anywhere to really face that on a quick enough way while that countdown time is going. So
does anyone have the computing power to face that?
Or to brute force?
We don't know. Maybe.
Never say never.
To brute force that many keys.
Well, it's a skill set, isn't it? I mean, if you're just some random bod who's had their stuff encrypted by a ransomware gang, you're not going to know how to go about that.
No,
unlikely.
Or you're going to have to pay somebody else in a very expensive game of cat and mouse to try a whole bunch, to brute force against it.
And this is why people just pay the ransomwares, right?
It is, but the most effective way, as we've seen, is by breaking in and getting that master key, or that asymmetric private key, and that's what we've seen this week. And so I think we need to look at how is ransomware fought at that stage. How do we get those decryption keys that are then available online that people will find and can easily decrypt their stuff? Because there's so much legal work. Over to you, Ed. You've been looking into that.
So I think all the trend right now is LockBit. Everyone's talking about it. It's been all over the news after the NSA and all the other legal bodies have kind of been looking into it. And I thought I'd just spout off some facts first, just to give some context as to actually, how big LockBit is.
We love them.
Hit them with a fact sandwich.
Hit them with a fact sandwich. Yeah. I've got a couple here. So in 2022. LockBit was the most deployed ransomware variant across the world, and that sort of led into 2023 as well, and it's still quite widely used even this year. In September 2019, there was kind of activity of ABCD, which was LockBit's predecessor, and that was the first time it was kind of seen. And in January 2020, LockBit was basically named, and that was the ransomware that we now know about. That's the first time it was actually seen on those kind of cybercrime forums. And it's still responsible for about 25% of attacks in the last year.
Last week.
So it's a massive problem. And it was really interesting to see because, as you were saying, Helen, a lot of ransomware uses exploits in existing software in order to work.
Yeah.
And the way that the LockBit website was actually hacked, and that kind of admin portal in the background was because of a PHP vulnerability that was used by the NSA and the other groups in order to actually get into those servers. So it was quite fun.
Did you see their response? LockBit's response that they came out with.
Was that yesterday? I think there was.
Yesterday or the day before, he was basically saying, "I got bored with that website. That's the only reason." Vulnerability.
That's just one of my servers.
That's just one. I've got loads.
Don't worry about
it. Well,
this
is the thing, isn't it? It's and there was a lot of talk in the community about this when the news came through earlier in the month about them being taken down. How effective is it them being taken down? Because as I see in the chat here. Of course, they had backups, right? They can now just pivot. If anyone's been caught, it's probably people further down the chain anyway. And like any big organization, it's like Hydra, right? There's so many heads to it. It's very difficult.
Yeah, and I think the point here is that it's not actually the biggest kind of side of this takedown was not the outage or the time they were taken down for. It's actually the damage it's done to their reputation. So all these criminals that were using them before and purchasing data from them or, anything like that, they now kind of go, well, hang on a minute, you got hacked by governments. So why would we use you in the first? That's the big damage.
And I guess it's how they hacked as well. It's the type of infiltration. It wasn't done through technology. It was done through good old-fashioned spy work. It was, okay, I'm one of you guys. I'm your friend. I'm your best friend. Yeah, I've got some things for you. Here's some stuff. For years, for a long time.
There was a PHP 0 day involved.
So the PHP 0 day that was sort of involved in this, in the vulnerability. That's kind of it's quite funny because they're kind of being shown to have not kept up with their cybersecurity sort of front. So they use an outdated version of PHP. There was actually a CVE that I was reading from a Reddit forum that someone kind of said, I think it's CVE 2023-3824, which basically meant that they couldn't be bothered to update their PHP version to cover those kind of basic holes in the software.
Good housekeeping. Good housekeeping.
So, it just shows really, really great housekeeping.
And the fact that they use PHP to run this very slick corporate-looking front end, rather than a sort of some bash script on a tool hidden service.
It goes back to my grandmother's quote earlier, doesn't it? All fur coat and no knickers, maybe appropriate. Yeah.
A bit of that. Definitely a bit of that.
Wow, the LockBit Sup, who is like the CEO, he kind of
Yeah.
has been pictured as a CEO because he behaves as a CEO. So he's going around sort of going, well, this is my company. It's like legitimate, man. I'm helping you.
Yeah.
But they're not very good at cybersecurity if they're going to leave a big vulnerability on their own system, right? And they've actually are now suffering exactly what they do to companies who've been ransomware. And we're now, the bad guys themselves are going, well, hang on. Can I trust a bunch of guys who the feds could be still crawling all over?
Exactly,
Do I want to be telling them what I'm doing? Do I want to give them like my actual, like they could trace it back to me? I'm not touching that. Like I'm not going near that.
Yeah.
They're done. They're burned.
Yeah.
And if we keep doing that and we keep hitting them and we keep damaging reputations like that, you know, we could potentially be beginning to win the fight on ransomware. But then it leads to the situation of, are those guys going to go get real jobs? They're going to go do a 9 to 5. They're going to go sweep a pavement. Are they going to come and do cybersecurity properly? Work those long hours and deal with the people just like them?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because they're criminally minded, and that's where the psychology sort of really does come into these people and their behavior.
Ego gets the better of them.
Ego,
often.
massive.
And you could feel that coming out in the statement he put out, couldn't you? It was a very I don't care, it doesn't affect me kind of statement, which clearly shows that he does care, and
it does
has affected him, because otherwise he wouldn't have had to brag about how much money he'd taken over the last. Again, back to Andy's point, it's all ego related, isn't it?
Yeah, get a bit giddy, and then you start making mistakes.
And it's incredibly immature as well. That sounds like what happens when you tell your, teenage son or daughter off, and that's exactly the response you get. You think, okay, well, you were a bit more grown up at 15, but apparently, LockBit Sup has not grown up, and I'm sure he's past 15 as he's been going.
Well, he might only be 16. You never know.
It hasn't been around that long, so maybe.
No.
That is certainly the case. So I guess the issue is that we want to look at is, when it comes to this sort of infiltration and tackling ransomware, is the infiltration the right method, or is it back to the good old fashioned, let's spy on everyone's data and use a nice AI crawler to pick those keywords out to see who's bad and who's good? We are noticing that there are not many ransomware gangs, like none, and no pedophile rings and no big organized crime gangs that are actually taken down by spying on their data that we can see. But what we do see is that good old-fashioned human-based infiltration, where people work long, hard hours mixed with that technology and all the tools that help them do that, is what we need to focus this. Because we're not machines on machines. We are humans on machines, and we make mistakes, and we behave with them and we operate with them as we do with each other to some extent. So we need to tackle it from that way as well.
Do you see AI helping with that? So whilst it's not about technology, but do you see AI helping us in that battle?
I think it favours the offensive side very strongly at the moment. I mean, you can see the ways that you can be able to do fast pattern matching, and in that arms race, you're going to be able to kind of have a nice IDS system that's looking at what's happening and responding in real time. But that arms race is all, as we know, it always favours the attackers, and AI is going to favour the attackers again. So I guess where we're coming from, I mean, the original remit of this, what are we going to talk to Simon about? We looked at a few things. One was another FBI case of smashing a massive child porn ring. And that was a blockchain analysis project, really. But the craft of infiltration and the very sort of slowly the gentleness of it, and also the risk. I mean, these people will kill you if they find you in their stuff. As law enforcement work, as a kind of police work that we want to big up in the face of all of this vicious political mischief making by people who want to install spyware in your iPhone, break backdoor encryption. You look at the stats.
It's already there anyway.
Again and again and again, you see zero has ever come out of that. Whereas a good old fashioned legwork, and that's what turns up stuff and breaks these big operations.
We are in some kind of Orwellian nightmare, aren't we? I mean, I remember reading 1984 at school. I think it was when I first read it.
And that is
It is quite scary. And in your bios, Which I shouldn't be asking you this question. I always say no pets or politics, but I'm going to do it anyway. It said that you all had differing views on politics. So,
yes,
which of you are going to vote for the current government when the elections come?
No comment on that.
But we've also got a lot of Americans watching, and I don't want to get involved in politics for their sake because they've also got a very special election coming.
Yeah, we're terrified. Everyone in England is terrified, and they're already getting. We've been instructed to put beans in the cupboard. That's how bad things are. I'm not joking. And beans.
Stock up on the Heinz.
Please, for the love of God, do not leave London because then we're all done.
Yeah.
So like that's already happening. So
did I mention we live on a farm and we've got vegetables grown in the garden? There's a reason for that.
To you.
You know? Come over. Come over. I mean, I think I don't know if any government would be worse, but to be better than the current one. And I'm putting my cards completely on the table here. I have, whether it's been misguidedly, voted Conservative all of my adult life. I won't be voting Conservative this time.
No.
However,
because any political change is good change.
Who do I vote for, though?
Well, we've got to weigh up when it looks at politics and things like that. Is it, and this comes through like Skin, actually. She's brilliant. You should check her out. She's really good at things like this. And she says that any change is good change. So once a government's got in this country, they only really have manifestos that last maybe 5 to 10 years. And they run out of ideas and they run out of people.
Run out of prime ministers.
Yeah, at this point, they've run out of anyone.
Run out of backhanders.
Yeah, they've done all the deals, they've got all the money in this case, right?
Yeah.
So they're happy to move on. They don't really have anything to offer, and so you need someone else who is going to be able to come in. And I guess if we all fragment our votes, the usual happens, and the Tories get back in. So we've got to collectively decide, right? And they made a lot of money actually out of COVID, so that's why we're in this.
Personally, they have. Yeah.
And so when rich people make a lot of money, they invest in fixed assets, and those fixed assets are now causing the absolute cost of living crisis and housing crisis that we're seeing. Most of our population, most of our children are now living in poverty. We are now poorer than we were coming out of World War II, and we could be going into World War III, and that frightens them.
I agree. Do you know from someone who from someone we've still got coal here. You should come over, honestly. For someone who spent 20 years making rich people richer in financial services before they came over to this industry, a little bit of silver lining to that cloud is that all of those invested in fixed interest and kind of annuity indexed stocks, which are very heavily weighted in those, are all really suffering at the moment. So let's just take a bit of comfort from that. There's a little bit of pain being dealt out, but there was a reason. There was a reason for me to mention politics. I'm just looking at Jonathan's comment. I think I was going to move to the UK. I told you it's not a good idea, Jonathan. I have told you that.
Monster raving loony party in the comments.
Yes, the one. The point of bringing up politics is it politicians and government who are in control of the decisions we make? Anyway, and I'm going to throw that very tedious link back to you.
Well, we talk about that a lot on our podcast, actually. We talk about the impacts of social media, and we teach about misinformation and disinformation, which are very different things. And they're they can be used interchangeably, but some people will be very keen on their misinformation. We live in a time which people don't understand what they're seeing is fact or fiction, and there's a mistrust in broadcasters.
There's a lovely line in that Sam Esmail. What was it? Leave the World Behind.
Yes.
I've forgotten what the dude is. The dude is the guy who owns the house.
I know
who he's saying at the end,
Yeah.
And this is he's kind of paraphrasing a bit of an old quote, which is when you get to the top and you get into the room where the levers of power are, there's nobody there. They're all cowering in the corner because nobody dares to touch the levers of power because no one knows how they work.
Yeah.
And what he's kind of saying is, we live in this emergent society in which nobody's actually in control. There's a systematic emergent phenomenon of stuff that seems to be in control, but you go to touch it and it's not there.
Yeah,
because the emperor's new clothes, isn't it? A little bit.
Maybe.
And I think social media. We heard that they were getting money from more extremist materials, so they're going to do that. That's their business model, and that's caused a ripple. And by doing that and saying, "Hey, believe me," they have to say, "Well, don't trust these guys." But those broadcasting companies have rules and regulations and ring fences, and have been around for a very long time. And when they do something wrong, they have to admit to it. But will you find the same from somebody on a YouTube video who does text-based videos, which I've seen about flat Earth? You're not, because they're not going to be able to to do that. And that's scary, that we've become a society that can't see the fact from the fiction right before we go into deepfake era.
Do you know what? It all goes back, and this is my theory on where it all went wrong, was Video Plus. Can you remember that, Andy? Video Plus? Video Plus. It all went wrong because I remember getting at Christmas one year, my mum and dad bought the family a Betamax video recorder.
Oh, yes.
That was about this big. Sorry, Ed. I know I'm not talking your language here.
Like, what's a video recorder?
The instruction manual was like this thick, and you needed a degree in electronic engineering to work out how to program the thing. And then a few years later, they introduced Video Plus, where when you opened your copy of the TV Times or Radio Times or whatever other publication you used for your TV and radio listings, there are others available. You were given, I can't remember how many digits, but a 5-6 digit code that you could just program into your remote control, and it automatically did it for you. Ever since then, no one's bothered working out how anything works. And it's then got worse through social media and the way we ingest information now. People only read headlines. So, you know, if you trawl through the newsfeed and don't actually read the stories, the headlines 90% of the time are just clickbait and don't really relate to the story at all.
And maybe that's because we stopped paying journalists for their work. We wanted it all.
It is all. Do you know what? I've got a friend, Lou Covey, who's based in San Francisco. He's been in journalism for 45 years, and he posts about this regularly because that's why we don't get that impartial opinion anymore.
We need to start, as a people, we need to say, well, if we want true information, not only does it need to be validated going into the AI area, where we know that what we're reading comes from a journalist, we need to pay them a nice, fair, lovely amount to produce that for us, so that we know that we're reading the truth. We've got the validation. We've got a journalist that we're helping to actually fund, that he can feed himself, so he's not desperate to do clickbait just to pay the rent.
Source attestation, something that's kind of most interesting research area. You know, there's sort of about interesting ways. I mean, it's a shame that we haven't kind of put stuff in place a lot earlier. I mean, and it's interesting the way that parallels with supply chain problems in software.
Absolutely.
You know, because the provenance of goods, whether it's media or software, is so hard to ascertain. And but in theory, there's all sorts of nice tricks we can do with zero knowledge proofs, and we can, you know, we can use blockchain-like technologies where each stage kind of hands over to the next one with a hash. So you can sort of have stuff that you could trace back and say, you know what, this is kosher. This is decent stuff.
And
but none of the infrastructure's in place.
No, it's not.
No. And it would be nice that journalist can spend a year to uncover things such, you know, long investigations, and know that they don't have to worry, because what's happening is they have to forego that and rush out a story as quickly as possible. It's going to get in the
What's happened to the Cook report is what I want to know, if you can remember that. Remember that investigative? See, I think even Andy's not old enough to remember that.
No, I'm afraid I am.
See, that was investigative journalism at its best. He used to physically harass people with a camera in their face after stalking them for 9 months.
He used to get punched out quite a lot, didn't he?
He did, that was the best bit, wasn't it? Just jumping into the chat quickly before we get back to it. We were talking about the loonies and the politicians, and Dr. Jonathan Van Houten's put, our loonies are scarier than yours. I might have to give you that, but I'm not quite sure, because we have got some really scary ones.
We have got some,
and Prashant, some of our loonies are huggable. I'd love to know, Prashant, which one you're talking about, because I'm really unsure.
They mean Boris. As a woman, you can't hug Boris. He gets you pregnant.
Well, I've been. He's not a hugger. He's a lover, not a hugger.
Yeah.
I've actually been in the same room as that man when I worked in financial services, and it's quite a funny story. It was an investment sort of dinner where speakers were coming, and Boris was one of the speakers. This is when he was before he was prime minister, about 20 years ago now, probably. And he was sat 2 rows back from where we were in the audience. And when it was his turn to speak, we were looking at the agenda. We'd spotted him in the crowd, and he was sat there. His hair was all brushed, his tie was all pushed up to the top, and he was all neat. They then called him up on stage, and no word of a lie, this is what he did. Got up and walked up onto that stage. Now I've messed my hair up. You can see my bald patch. I have to sweep it back over. Let me just sweep that back over. There we go. No one saw anything. No auto cue. No hair on the forehead. But yeah, it just goes to show what a pantomime that man was. Really.
Do you know what? And that goes back to what we're saying about politicians. They're performers now. It's about the celebrity. I don't remember in the 1980s and 90s that you'd vote for the most attractive one with the biggest following.
It was Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, she was not attractive. Not a nice lady. She was not someone you'd want to chill out with YouTube and have a biscuit with, or go around and see.
Is it wrong that I should say she was always my weird crush? Or I don't know. That's a joke. That's a joke.
That's what people's like anti, cold shower thought moments. That's so opposite. They go, think of Margaret Thatcher, you'll be fine. And Simon's like, no.
I told you I was good at digressing as well, didn't I? Yeah. Sorry, let me let you get back on track. Apologies.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you talking about? Ransomware.
Ransomware. Just while you're thinking about where we were, Jonathan's put as well, the side effect of that lack of understanding is the impact it has on non-technical leaders and their adoption of any new technologies. Apparently, part of his dissertation was the psychological impact of lacking understanding on decisions.
Here's one for you then, Jonathan. There's a book that I like to kind of always bring up, and I don't want to rag on this guy because he actually wrote a very good book on user interface design, which was Steve Krug.
Yeah.
But the title of it is "Don't Make Me Think." I think an entire generation of techies took that a little bit too much to heart, right? Just a little bit too much. If you have to think about what you're doing, that means you understand it,
right?
Yeah. And that entire bypassing. I mean, if you kind of think about it as in a truly psychological way, in terms of different sort of brain level processes, once you're into that kind of haptic loop of you're just doing stuff, right? Because this is how people use computers now, isn't it? And it's like, it literally bypasses the rational parts of your brain, and so you're
scrolling constantly.
Now, from a cybersecurity point of view, you have to realize that some smart psychologists that are writing exploits and stuff like that, and they're thinking about that. They're thinking about the fact that you are going to be completely reactive and the way that you're going to do stuff. And this entire culture of user interfacing that takes away, it factors thinking out of the process.
Completely. Well, all you have to do is look at someone on the bus on like TikTok or something, and they're just they're asleep and they're still scrolling like
and
that.
I can see what they're doing because I know to look up, and I have a right old giggle sometimes because I can see what they're doing on their phone. I'm like, dude, I don't think that's your wife. Does she know? Would you be saying your bank password, secret code on a train?
On the train,
and I've stopped people and gone, you definitely shouldn't do that because I am.
If whoever's watching this, make sure you don't sit next to Helen on a train.
Look up. So I'm saying mirrors everywhere, guys.
Yeah.
And
don't look up.
My partner had to learn from a show. He's like, anyone with glasses is ruined because when they stare at a phone, the reflection comes back. Yeah, I'm terrible.
Now Ed's looking really nervous now. Ed, why are you so nervous?
It actually just reminded me of the time I saw this guy on the train. It was dark outside. He had his iPad and was watching some adult content on his iPad. The train. And he was looking window like this, and because it was dark,
a flesh-coloured reflection on its glasses.
Not just its glasses, but the entire train window.
Was he rubbing one out?
No, luckily not.
Darren watched it. It's like, who watches that for fun? The story's terrible.
Yeah.
You heard of Netflix? That'd be much more entertaining on your commute, my friend.
Yeah.
Oh, God, ransomware.
Right.
Anyway, ransomware.
Ransomware.
We got 5 minutes to talk ransomware. Come on.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess the most important part of ransomware is that we can't just use technology on its own to tackle this. That there's a whole group of engineers, there's cybersecurity guys, we've got FBI, we've got agents, we've got police officers, we've got multinationals getting on top of this and
they
really
need more
getting
money.
in.
And they
need more money.
They are very poorly funded.
Yeah.
And they're helping to keep that tech safe. So maybe some of those big 5 companies that Ed was looking at that have a lot of money and power should actually start investing a little bit more because they're kind of creating the problem in the private sector and asking the public sector to come along and save them and foot the bill when it's going bad.
Get this one.
But the problem... This was on Bruce's
site yesterday. This was on Bruce's site yesterday.
Bruce.
Was underwriting cyber insurance companies out of public money, so that when you're so crap that you can't secure your computer, and you buy a cyber insurance policy, and then that pays out because you're rubbish at defending yourself.
Naturally,
Now Muggins is going to pay for it. That we're going to start paying for that. So
but isn't that the way we build our societies here in the UK? Because my mother, who passed away last year, she worked hard all of her life to own her own house, and then ended up having to sell it to pay for her care home fees. However, another person I know who didn't work all their life, they got all theirs paid for in the same care home. So again, it's back to that political, societal, I suppose, priorities. And you say about giving the authorities who do this more money. I completely agree. But at the moment, if private organisations did give more money, well, it wouldn't go to them, would it?
No.
That's the problem.
I think also there's sort of on that kind of front of public services, and you think about the law side of tech and GDPR and laws like that, and there are loads of stories where that's definitely helped protect data, and also the victims of their data that was stolen because of a ransomware attack or on a company you've trusted with your information, and it's just actually been sold anyway on the dark web. A more recent one, Southern Water, which I'm actually affected by as well.
One of the biggest water companies in the South Coast that we all locally, as well at the universities, use. Is a good example. Actually failed on and have had 50% of their clients, all their clients' data stolen. And it's actually a third party that they were using to run things like their pension and back end systems, which also was affected by Marks and Spencer's pensions as well. So you have one company that handles the money for two major companies that has a ransomware attack, and we're looking at millions and millions of people having all their data.
When was it? Was it last year or the year before that Capita got hit, or it might have even before then? I mean, you think they administer I don't know how many pension schemes,
millions,
private and government in the UK. I think the thing with protecting your data, it's a bit like shutting the gate after the horse is bolted, because I think probably all of our data is out there already, isn't it?
Kind of the thing, you're sticking your hand through the fence where you got to hand your data over to an organisation. Be it, your utility company, your bank, or whatever. You trust that they're going to look after it, but that's not really the case anymore.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. I personally don't.
That's what you were saying earlier, right? There is a gift on the internet with lying. Sometimes we should lie. Do Southern Water need to know, your local water company need to know all that information? Can you put in a false date of birth? Are they going to be looking at that? Probably not.
We've got a new blog article, haven't we? A couple of. There's one that's about trust, and we did the Ken Thompson trusting trust.
That was our first episode.
A new one, kind of looking at trust and trustworthiness. I think the title might be something. Security is love. One I did with Kate on the fact that trust can never be compelled. The idea that you can trust somebody is predicated on the idea that you have equal standing and that you have equal risk and so on. And when somebody says to you, well, you must use this service, or you might, that's no longer a trustworthy relationship from the get-go. I mean, one of the skills that we teach in cybersecurity as a sort of number one principle is you need to know how to lie. Because these days you need to lie, and you need to know when it's like legally, what are the legal boundaries of that? Because I mean, who the hell gives their real information,
their real date of birth to Google?
Never do that, because it's going to get leaked next week.
And I always went on the assumption of just get a rubbish email address, use it for a while, burn it, and start again. And you can transfer all your data across, because the longer you have something, and it's the same in all cybersecurity, the longer something runs, the more chance it gets.
Ephemerality is a very powerful defense. It's not that your attack surface is small; it's that it's brief.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we're straying.
It's all about the time. It's all about the time constraints, right? Well, look, we are talking about time constraints. Look at that, another seamless link that I didn't even mean to do. We are actually out of time, which is a real shame, because I think we could have probably carried on this discussion for a couple of hours. Do you think? Couple of options here, and I'm going to do this live rather than on a chat afterwards. One, come back for session 2. And we'll continue the discussions talking about, I think, social media's influence on society. Dig into that a bit more. And also, I just want to share the link to the CyberShow, which is in the chat for anyone who wants to check it out. And I'm also looking for, or I've got guest guest hosts hosting on the channel at the moment. So if you three would ever like to bring the Cyber Show under InfoSec Live and do a few series and promote your own stuff, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So
that'd be great. Yeah,
perfect. In that case, then let's catch up early part of next week off camera, so that we don't discuss all of it in front of our audience. Secondly, again, seamless link. The audience, you've been amazing today. Thank you for your input. You've made me chuckle several times.
We've been watching your comments live, and we've been chuckling away at some of them.
It's been really, really good. But I've now got to go and pick up my 15-year-old son. So from me, Simon Linstead, thank you so much for tuning in. Guys and girl, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and share. It's been, I think, the most entertaining session of the last 2 years.
Thank you for having us.
And our pleasure. And I'm looking forward to Andy getting his voice back so we can grill him more effectively the next time he comes on. I hope you get better soon, mate. I know what it's like at our age. It takes us a while to get better, doesn't it? But, so sorry for picking on you, but look, thank you guys and girl for coming on. Really appreciate it. Everyone who's tuned in, thank you. See you all soon. I'll be back here next week. Take care.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you,
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.